Welcome back to the True Sports Physical Therapy Podcast, a show that's by sports PTs and for sports PT professionals. We're here to accelerate growth in your sports PT career while giving you the tools to provide your athletes with game-changing results. Here's your host, sports physical therapist and practice owner, Dr. Yoni Rosenblatt.
You are about to hear from Kyle Harrison, who I've been trying to get on this podcast forever now. His list of accomplishments are unbelievable. Obviously, the face of lacrosse, now professional lacrosse, 2005 Tualatin Award winner as the world's best lacrosse player, 2005 NCAA Division I men's lacrosse champion, 2005 he led the Johns Hopkins University to an undefeated season, 2 times McLaughlin Award winner to the best midfielder in the country, 3 times top 5 Tualatin Award winner, 2003 second team All-American, 10-time professional lacrosse all-star, 1-time professional lacrosse champion, 2-time national team player for the United States of America. He's a member of the Maryland U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame. He's a member of the Johns Hopkins Hall of Fame. He instrumental in the founding of the Premier Lacrosse League, CEO of 5-Star, owner and founder of 1812. Kyle Harrison has so much to share with you about how to succeed at elite levels on the field, but also off the field. We're going to learn a ton. Can't wait for you to listen in on my conversation with Kyle Harrison. Welcome back to the True Sports Physical Therapy Podcast. I got Kyle Harrison with us, finally. Stop. Dude, I've been hounding you forever to be on this podcast.
I don't know if that's true.
It's not true at all. It's like one text. Kyle's like, yeah.
I said, I'm here. I got nothing else to do.
Any day you want, anytime you want.
Yep.
Kyle Harrison, for those who don't know, you've played some lacrosse in your life?
I played for a handful of years.
Handful of teams, handful of years.
Yep, all that.
Started a couple businesses.
A handful.
You have so much to share with this sports physical therapy world and community. We can't wait to hear from you. Here's a little bit of a rundown.
Please.
2005, you win the Tualatin Award.
It's a good year.
Good year, 2005. You are an NCAA champion.
Mm-hmm.
You went undefeated
Mm-hmm.
for the Johns Hopkins University. Not to be confused with John Hopkins. It drove me insane when you let people say that.
Well, what am I supposed to do?
Johns.
I'm saying
Johns.
in a public environment,
Johns.
when someone
That's
says John Hopkins, you got to let it go. You can maybe tell them later, but
You make a good point. Do you tell them later?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Like, throw an S next time you say that.
Throw an S. Okay. You were a 2-time McLaughlin Award winner.
I was.
Is that pronounced correctly? McLaughlin.
You nailed it.
Hell yeah.
You nailed it.
Which is given to college's best
Midfielder.
midfielder. 3-time top 5 Tualatin finalist. 2003 second team All-American. I don't know how you didn't make first. 10-time professional lacrosse all-star. 1-time professional lacrosse champion. 2-time national player for the United States of America.
That's right.
Member of the Maryland U.S. Lacrosse Chapter Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
Member of the Johns Hopkins
Attaboy.
Hall of Fame. You've done a few things.
A handful of things.
Let me tell you what doesn't get enough run.
Oh no, go on.
In 2013,
Uh-huh.
Beats Electronics
Sure.
creates personalized custom headphones designed for a select few celebrities.
That's right.
That included LeBron James, Wayne Rooney, Justin Bieber.
Mm-hmm.
You always did remind me of Justin Bieber. Kobe Bryant, Lady Gaga, and
Go on.
that's it. And Kyle Harrison. Dude, it's really incredible to see what you've accomplished because I've known you since probably 1999.
Yeah.
And just watching you along the way has been incredible and eye-opening and humbling because very often I'm like, God damn it. What am I?
Stop.
I remember seeing you in Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
I remember you really becoming the face of lacrosse and now the face of, I'd say, sports entrepreneurship, which is really awesome.
Appreciate
So
that.
tell me this.
Yep.
Which of your attributes do you credit for all of this success?
That's a tough starting question. Honestly, I think I'd have to say it's how I was raised, right? Like I think when you're talking about athletics and what we've learned in a locker room or on a field, um, there's a ton of stuff, right? Perseverance, overcoming adversity, all those things. But I think before I even got there, it was what my parents taught me, and it's about how you treat people, and the relationships you build, with expecting nothing in return, just being a decent human being. And I think for me, even the comment you just made about that Beats thing, it's hysterical because that all came to be just based on a cat named Jay Corbin that I met that was running the show at Beats at the time, and we hit it off, and he was just a good dude, and because we developed that relationship, he put me in that situation with that list of athletes that I had no business being on a list with when you look at our sports. But he rolled out the red carpet, had those headphones designed, had a whole thing in the Beat store in New York, like, and that was just all based on a relationship. So I guess I'd say just how I was raised: be good to people.
Be good to people. I've seen you really embody that, and this is what I wanted to get across. Because, dude, we could geek out about your lacrosse accolades, and I think that's really interesting. I'm sure that'll come up. We could geek out about your business accolades, but it's the merging of those two things that I think the entrepreneur, or even the young sports physical therapist listening to this podcast can take away. What I've learned is people that are successful in their field, it doesn't matter what that field is, they have common attributes. And that's a great one, which is treat everyone with respect and connect, right? That, I mean,
100%.
at least that's what I've heard. I've seen you do this really time and again. And you did it to me the first time you walked in for rehab. You probably did
The old spot.
At the old spot,
Yeah, I remember.
Fells Point in the church.
Yeah.
A couple things that I remember very clearly about that interaction. Number one, you remember what you were wearing? It'd be weird if you did, but I remember.
I don't. Well,
go ahead. You remember?
Give me more context. Was it when I had the adductor?
Yeah,
or
yes.
back?
That was adductor.
Adductor. First time in there, you did needling.
Yeah. Yeah. You're walking into a church. You're wearing a hoodie.
I remember walking into. I love
hoodie.
that church.
It's a great church. My favorite church.
I like kind of remember when you say that.
You're wearing a Friends.
Yeah, that's
hoodie.
it. That's it. Yeah. Yep.
And when I saw that, I'm like, this guy remembers kind of where he came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's important. And that just came across. And your ability to connect with me, which is a random PT, was very clear.
Right.
That was kind of front and center to the way you do business.
Yep.
And then in researching, kind of going through this pod, every time you talk to someone, you're connecting with them.
Tried to. Well, just because look, man, I think my success athletically from the beginning, back to the Friends days, was really based on coaches and people connecting with me, and meeting me where I was. And where I think, you look at, if I looked at all the coaches I had and teammates I had, like they were put, in my opinion, they were put in my life for a very specific reason, for whatever that lesson needed to be learned at that time. Like I came from a place like Friends, that, everyone got to play, and really, really, a coaching style that you were very rarely reprimanded for things you did bad. To a place like Hopkins, where Coach Petra was the polar opposite of that, but I actually probably needed that at that point. Like I think Friends did everything for me they possibly could have, and then passed me on to the big guy. For now, it's him and his staff that have to like take me the last bit to get me where I need to get athletically, mentally, and I needed that at that time. And so I look at all of the people that have come into my life, and again, like I said, I think they, specifically my coaches and teachers, like were very specific about connecting with me and the impact it made on my life. I know how big it was now as like an old man with kids of my own. So I try and do the same.
So you mentioned that Coach Petramala kind of connected with you. I wanted to dig into a little bit of that relationship because I think that has tremendous carryover to what we're talking about business-wise, and career trajectory wise. You get to Johns Hopkins, and that's Petra's first year.
His first full year. Yeah, he and his staff came in halfway through the prior year.
Okay, he recruited you. Okay, so he recruits you. How would you describe Coach Petra's style?
In the recruiting process?
Nope, coaching.
Oh, he gets after you. I think look, freshman year was probably tough mentally to like understand like why is this cat yelling at me and everybody else so much. But then once you get past the yelling and like listen to what's being said, it became easy and it became like, I don't know, how I like to be coached. I think depending on who your coach is in college, in lacrosse, I can't speak to other sports. Obviously, I played lacrosse. You like crave that as you get to the next level. Like professionally, I'd say if you ask most pro players what they want, it's to be coached and coached hard. Like that's where we all play and perform at our best. And so I thought that staff, specifically the top three of Coach Petro, Coach Tierney, and Coach Dwan, were so perfect for us during my time there, and so perfect for me. Coach Petro got after you. Coach T put his arm around you, and Coach Dwan just like was somewhere in the middle of those two. Right, he could play either side, and they were brilliant. That's why they won.
Yeah, and they won a lot.
Yeah,
they won a lot. Now, that coaching style resonated with you. Did you have teammates that perhaps it wasn't the ideal fit coaching style-wise? Okay, so let me ask you this. How did you handle that? Because, man, you look at some of your accolades and it's all about leadership. How did you handle it when the head coach or the boss, let's say, in this instance, resonates with you, the leader, but not necessarily the teammates? You got all this chatter in the locker room or in the work environment. How do you handle it and rally the troops to say, no, we're going to fall in line and follow this leader or leadership?
For sure. So I think two things. One, it depends on the situation, right? Every situation is different. I think there are times to do what you just said, which is go back into the locker room, get us all together. Like, hey, I know we don't all agree with it, but if you look at the track record, there's a ton of success here. I think we got to see it through. There's that conversation. But I will tell you, and Coach Petro would sit here and tell you the same thing, there's the other side of the conversation too, which is I go in the locker room and I hear what they say. I kind of agree with them. So now me and the other couple captains, we're walking down the hallway to his office to say, like, here's what we need. And we meet in the middle, right? We figure it out. We had a ton of those conversations throughout my career. There's especially, I can say the one that sticks out in my head is senior year fall, where we were a senior-laden team, right? You had me, Benson Irwin, Chris Watson, Tom Garvey, Kyle Berry, Peter Lesor. You just have all these seniors that have started since they were freshmen, right? So, like, at this point, fall ball is like, dog, like we got it. Like we're gonna go get our asses kicked by Georgetown in some tournament at some grass field somewhere.
We'll be fine.
We're gonna be all right come springtime. Like that happened every year. So like we had the conversation of like we got to back off a little bit. We promise you, we will give you every ounce of everything we all have the second springtime hits. But we have to turn it down a little bit, at least physically. Mentally, we can do film, we can do all the other stuff, but like we're beating ourselves up and we need a minute. So we've had those conversations too. So that's part of your job as a leader. And I think I grew into that. There was a time where I probably wouldn't have been comfortable having that conversation. But I mean, you get to a point where like if your teammates and or your staff trust you to be the person to have those conversations, then that's all the confidence you need to do that.
Yeah, I love that. It's awesome to hear that. It sounds like Petramala was open to having that conversation with you, and probably based upon the rapport that he had built with you. When I see it in the work environment, I love that as potentially the boss, wanting to hear that feedback. You know, you don't want to just keep riding and driving if it's not leading towards the goal that you kind of have in mind. You got to hear from the leaders in the locker room, like in this analogy. So that certainly kind of resonates. Talk to me about a little bit earlier on. Now, man, we went through those accolades, and it's really impressive what you did in lacrosse. You and I both know.
Oh, no. Here we go.
You and I both know you could have played a number of different sports professionally.
Could
have. You did pretty well for yourself on the basketball court.
I was okay.
You were really good.
It's okay.
So much so that
here we go.
What? You won 2 MIAA basketball titles. You earned all conference honors, MIAA. You were also a hell of a soccer player. You won 1 MIAA title in soccer.
We did. Beat St. Paul's.
St. Paul's.
Junior year.
Of course you did.
It's a great year.
We won't get into senior year. You earned all conference honors in soccer as well.
Yeah.
Why did you choose lacrosse?
I mean, I have the answer now as a grown-up. Back then, I'm not sure, honestly. I think because basketball was the one I loved. Probably out of the three, the one that would be the most of a reach, right, to try and like pursue that one long-term, college, chase pro in Europe, whatever the ceiling would have been. But that was one I loved the most. I think I ended up choosing lacrosse based on my family history, what my dad did, what my dad started, and wanting to be a part of that history, with what he started at Morgan State. And then honestly, it's the one that I feel like my potential, there was just a ton of it. Whereas soccer, like I was a very good soccer player. Like if I would have pursued that in college, I probably would have been like a midfielder or a back. And I don't know how much better I would have gotten skill wise. I think athletically, I probably could have taken that somewhere. But lacrosse is the one that, like, as I watched and learned and like kind of saw the dudes that were the dudes in high school, I was like, wait a second, like if I'm in a different place and I'm focusing on only this, I think that I have a chance to do something here. And then when I remember the day like it was yesterday, it was me and Benson, my best friend from Friends, and we're both at Hopkins. And I remember we had spent the summer training with Jay, because that summer between senior year and freshman year of college. Training with Jay just because we're coming from Friends. You got these kids coming from like big time Long Island schools and everything around Maryland, these elite programs, and we're coming from Friends. And so we're like, we are without a doubt not as prepared as the rest of these guys. And so at minimum, we got to be in shape. Like, let's just try and get in shape. So Coach Petros, Coach Tierney, and Coach Dawn connected with Jay. We're training with Jay.
That's Jay Dyer.
Jay Dyer, yeah, the guy, the man. Yes, the man, the myth. And so we're training with them. So at minimum, we're in shape. And so we go in, and that first day, we're doing testing. So we're doing your 40 time and your 300-yard shuttle time. And Benson and I smoked, like, wasn't even close how we ran that. And we were like, oh, so we're actually okay. We're better than we thought. We should be here. Yeah. And then from a confidence perspective, it was over. Just in terms of like my ability to think like, oh shit, I am supposed to be here. I can do this. And everything that I've thought in the back of my head about MJ fadeaway, hitting a jumper, all those things I dreamed, like now they just have to translate to lacrosse, and let's chase this now.
So that's awesome. That typifies your work ethic, because you put in the work all season. Coach Jay standing on the sideline with his arms crossed, just barking at you. It's also, I've heard you break it down to say, and I think you just hinted at it just now. You said, I'm looking on the lacrosse field. I know who the dudes are, and I know I'm better than them. And athletically.
Yeah, for sure.
And you certainly made that clear. What's I think the parallel is, you got to survey the field. And so when you look professionally, let's dig into this a little bit. When you look into off the field, I looked at it at like in the sports PT world, and I'm like looking around Maryland, and I'm like, I know there's a sports PT here, and I want to work for them. I got to find them. I'm gonna work my ass off, and then I'm like, wait a minute, there's no sports PT in Maryland. What the hell? So I'm like, screw it. I'll go up to Manhattan. My wife's from New York, Strong Island.
There you go.
And I'm like, I'll find it here.
Yeah.
And I look up there and I'm like, dude, there's not a lot there. Now, this is 15 years ago. I'm sure there are awesome sports PTs there now. But my point is, you survey the field and you realize, hey, where can I be successful? Does that match up with my passion and my abilities and acumen? And then you dive in, you looking at the lacrosse field and realizing, Jesus Christ, I could do this for a living. I could be an all-time great. And then you go, you kind of dive in. That's what I heard. I remember, I think you said to me, I looked on the lacrosse field and no one could do what I could do.
Yeah, it was just like again, athletically. They were more skilled. They were, especially back then, they were significantly more skilled. But I think the two things that gave me confidence are, one, I felt like I was more athletic than everyone. And then two, I could watch what they did and then duplicate it in my own way faster and quicker. And so like, as I started putting those things together, and then you get under coaches like Coach Petro, Coach Tierney, Coach Dawn, like you have film stuff. You have all these, I get friends. I don't know what you guys did about the film. We weren't watching any film. We weren't watching any film. Stop.
We just watched film of Kyle Harrison. That's all we did.
Okay, so now
like everyone around the TV.
And you didn't record.
Put it in the VCR.
Oh, that's such a bummer with that old. But no film. We're like any breakdowns. Like there was none of that stuff. So like, give me access to all that stuff. Yeah, it was a fun time though.
Okay, so then you dive in. Tell me how you applied that lesson of scanning the field, realizing you're better at something, and going headlong into it in the business world.
So I credit like my longevity within the sport and being able to like really build businesses and a brand to my partners at the beginning. And so basically, I was fortunate, you know, what I mean, that at the very beginning, like coming out of college, getting drafted #1, and making Team USA, and like being a quote unquote pro lacrosse player. Um, I had to find the right partner that was going to allow me to be a pro lacrosse player, right? Like most guys, especially back then, not until recently with everything going on with the PLL and the changes that have made, elevated wages, healthcare, all that stuff. Most guys like got drafted to play in the MLL, and then also were like on Wall Street and like doing a bunch of stuff. So for me, you know, STX, I signed a deal that allowed me to be a full time player. I was a full time employee. And so my job there was building my brand, the K-Team brand. We built and launched a full equipment line: gloves, arm pads, arm guards, shoulders, stick, the whole thing. That ran for 15 years. But again, from 2005 when I graduated, full-time employee. So 401k, healthcare, car, like all of that stuff, which allowed me to be in a position like, okay, that's handled. So now let me figure out how to build a brand. Let me focus on training so I can play lacrosse long term. Because most often you'll see back then, especially, guys would last 3 years, 3 to 5 years,
because they were sitting at a desk.
They're sitting at a desk all day, you know, and they're lasting 3 to 5 years. So now I had my base set with STX, and I knew they'd be my long-term partner. Still my partner. I think my deal is 3 years left on it. Like, they're still my partner. And now it was like, okay, got that set. Now let's like build everything else out, fill in with different deals, and I really started to understand, especially back then, that there's going to be opportunities from a sponsorship perspective. Where like, you know, maybe the cash comp isn't what you'd want, but there's opportunity for a back end where you can ask for equity, and knowing full well that I ain't going anywhere. So like there's a couple of deals that like that I signed a 10-year deal for equity that like it's going to accrue over that 10 years. Now it's been 12 years, so I own 10% of the company, and you know, it's just another thing that me and my family get to be a part of. So I think when it came to like taking some of the skills from my athletic career and kind of implementing it in the business, I'm still learning, right? Like I just retired a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, so I'm definitely still learning. But you know, early investments and then identifying the right partner to grow with me, I think was like the best thing that could have happened back in 2005.
I'm smirking like an idiot because the carryover is so clear to me to like our world. So you're a sports PT, you're listening to this pod, you're listening to Kyle Harrison. Maybe you know who he is, or maybe you don't.
Maybe you don't.
Maybe
it's okay. Because, it's okay.
It's okay. But now they know. It's you find a job that can like cover your nut. That's what you did. You talk to SDX. They say we're going to take care of you with XYZ, and then you look out and say, okay, how do I grow? How do I either become an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur? So my advice to those listening is find opportunities like that. We try to build that at True Sports, where you come in and you're like, okay, like I can treat patients, make this amount of money, make sure that I'm set, and what else can I bring to the company? What else can I bring to the market? Whether that's in education or whatever it is. It sounds like that's exactly what you did. You also make a great point of the team you build around you. Because at Hopkins, you were what kind of major?
I think it was called writing STEM. So it was like Hopkins' version of journalism.
Okay. So you think you're going to be a journalist?
Oh, that was the plan. ESPN internship, that was the plan for sure.
You're going to Bristol.
Yeah.
I'm working for ESPN.
Yeah.
And then you become this pro athlete. So where does the business acumen come from?
Just watching it. I mean, look, I was around the dopest dudes. Jesse Hubbard is the guy that like I got the New Jersey Pride locker room, and Jesse Hubbard, you know, top 5 player of all time, is there. And he was what I wanted to be, right? Like Jesse at the time was with Warrior. He was one of the founders of Warrior. He was obviously a pro player. Family dude. Like I remember like it was yesterday how he would talk about his wife and his kids, and like I was like, oh, that well, there's my guy. Like I'm gonna attach myself to him and listen to everything he says. So I watched that. I met other people within the sport. Like you know, Mike Powell was on the U.S. team as well. When I had come out, and he had just released his line. He had a deal with Scion, that car, that box car. He had just signed that deal. Yeah, and he had his house that we all went to up in upstate New York. It was like on a golf course. Anyway, spending time with him, and like again, and Mike is an eccentric dude, but spending time with him and learning like how he built what he had going. Ryan Boyle was another young one at the time that was, you know, right up there with Gilman? Mike Powell. Yeah, Gilman, all timer, had his own company. You know, he had a bunch of deals. So like there were guys that were doing stuff. And I think that was also right at the time, Yoni, that like people were getting in lacrosse. Like people were different companies. Like Nike had just gotten in. I just signed the deal with Nike. Me and Ryan Powell were the first Nike lacrosse athletes. So I'd signed that deal. So I was like out in Portland on Nike campus with like there was just stuff happening where I was just trying to absorb all of it because it was so new and foreign. And to your point earlier, it just was not my plan. Like my plan until the MLL paperwork was sitting in my locker, I was planning on ESPN internship, chase down this journalism thing, see what happened. It was in my locker was the MLO paperwork and the Team USA paperwork. Like, do you want to try out and do you want to be in the MLO draft? I remember we were all in there. It was like mid-season. We're like, we doing this? Like, let's figure it out after practice. And then like after practice, like, yeah, why don't we just all jump in this thing? So we all signed it, and that was it. And didn't think anything of it until we won the national championship. I think we went to Cancun like 2 days after that. We come back.
Hold on, what happened in Cancun?
Honestly, not a ton.
No one's listening.
No. Look, we were all safe, not a ton, but something just happened out there.
Yeah.
If we think back to 2005, I can't remember what, but something had just happened really bad.
Not something good. Yeah.
No, not something good. And so we were like, we ate and chilled.
Still figuring that out.
Are they really?
Yeah, I think so.
That's insane. So we were dinner and chilling and sitting at the pool, happy as hell because we just went undefeated and won. But came back, and then that's when this all started. So I get long-winded answer, but it was really just learn and absorb everything you possibly can from the people that are doing what you want to do. And that's just what I did. I found each person professionally that was doing what I wanted to do and just picked their brain, sat with them, watched how they handle themselves, watched how they handle themselves publicly, all of it.
Just observing, noting, and another thing about you, and I find this with a lot of very successful people, is your memory is insane.
I mean, I try.
But I don't think you do. But maybe you do.
No, I think it's part of connecting, right? Like it's part of like a real connection with someone and something. And if it's all surface, then you can't remember it because it's just like, hey, what up, man? Good to see you. And then it's over. But if I like ask you something, or your kid's name, or something that you did 10 years ago, I'm gonna remember that. And then next time I see you, we can, rehash that conversation and come up again, and that's an actual real connection. So I think it's back to our first point of you have to connect with people, specifically the people that you want to do business with and be like.
Sure.
And that's how it goes, and then it just gets locked to memory.
Dude, that's what I say about being a sports PT is it's probably true in any field, which is like the theme of today's conversation, which is what makes you successful in one field translates to every field.
Absolutely.
But it's how much you care.
Yeah.
It's how much you care and how much you can lock in and be present.
Yeah.
And show the patient, the athlete, that you give a damn.
Yeah.
And sky's the limit from there.
Yeah.
Sounds like the same thing kind of in the business world. Now, as you go through, you sign MLL, you play for Team USA, you really start to become just a professional. Yeah. Now you take a couple risks along the way. Yeah. And I'm sure not everything was smooth sailing.
No.
Great. Glad you said that, because otherwise this would be a terrible question. Give me a misstep that you made and what you learned from it.
I've made tons. I think we've made tons. I think the funniest story, and I'll tell like the short version is this story is all time. And for people listening, you're gonna have to chase down. If I ever end up doing this like LXM recap, you have to chase down to hear it from my partner's perspective. But I'm telling you, this is all time. And so
tell us what LXM is.
Yep.
Okay,
so we're in LA.
Yep.
I moved out to LA to play for the LA Riptide. Like I wanted to move to LA anyway, but like it made sense. Like if I can go in the LA team, all this makes sense. As opposed to moving to LA and then flying back to play for New Jersey. That wouldn't have made a ton of sense. So moved to LA the next year and we had a successful run. We lost in the championship or semis that year. I can't remember. But the next year the team folds. And so now we're all out in LA. We have an opportunity to play for Denver, but that's still like not a home game, right? I'm still jumping on a plane. And so myself, Xander Ritz, Max Ritz, Scott Hockstedt, Craig Hockstedt, we're out there. And there's a bunch of pro guys, obviously, now that have moved out to play for San Fran or LA. Those teams no longer exist. And so we talk and we have this idea of this thing called the LXM Pro Tour. Lacrosse meets music. And so basically picture a festival, 40 pro lacrosse players, a pro all-star game, a concert happening, vendors, just like a festival of a weekend. And so we're launching this thing. Scott had been a successful entrepreneur. He had started Adrenaline. at Stars. He had done a lot of stuff. So Scott had been in the business world. He's about eight to 10 years older than us. So he was certainly the leader. And Xander was his right-hand man at the time. And then you have Craig, myself, and Max. And so we're building this business. We're signing players. And it was just like, it was loose, which is fine. It was loose. It was definitely my first time in like a real business, real, quote unquote. But it was loose. And so hockey comes in, Scott comes in, is like, we're going to change the business. I've got it. We're done. We just signed Drake. And this is like, think right when Best I Ever Had had just dropped. And like, so what, it wasn't all that crazy, right? It wasn't all that crazy, especially being out in LA, that like,
that would have happened.
Yeah, you somehow like stumbled on somebody's manager at some party or dinner, and yeah, hey, can Drake come play 5 songs or something? And it worked, right? So we're all in the office like, holy like, this is incredible. Yeah. This is gonna change everything. And so like then it became full speed ahead. Like, what do we get? We had to make sure our players ready, make sure all stuff ready. TV ticker. There's an imposter manager floating around Beverly Hills. Booking Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Lil Wayne shows.
How many people were like,
we were like,
Drake's coming?
oh my god, Scott. And so we were in a panic. I think we had wired like 80 grand.
Come on. Did you tell your fans, hey, Drake's
no,
coming?
Thank God we had not. Oh my god. Or actually, no,
there were no fans.
No, there was another. Well, that's a problem in itself. But wait, there was another one. So the Drake thing happened. There was another one where Akon backed out on us. And he had, in his defense, we had signed him. We had, and he wired all the money back. He did it right.
Actually, through his manager.
Yeah. Through his real manager.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, through his real. We had Akon for a second, and then he had a family scenario pop up, which obviously is completely fine. His people were great. I think they wired whatever had happened back, but we had promoted Akon, and he couldn't come. The Drake thing hadn't gotten out yet. But that was all time.
That's a mistake. A misstep.
Massive
Yes.
misstep.
And the things you learned from that were?
From that situation. Well, I'd say what I would say about out there is it's a little weird, man, because I would actually argue that I bet that interaction, and I know this guy was an imposter manager, but I'd argue that interaction is still happening out there with a real manager. And like you're grabbing a beer, you're grabbing coffee, and you're like, can you slide by and do a couple songs? I'm like, yeah, I got you, man.
Dude, that's how I got you on the podcast.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure that stuff is still happening. So the lesson there is just, one, we have to be more. There were so many gaps within that business. Admittedly, on my part and all of our part, we were learning, we were growing. But man, I learned. My wife talks about it all the time when we like have things that happen. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Recently, our 18 office, we switched locations, and my business partner was out of town, and so my wife's like carrying couches and doing all this stuff. I'm like, sweetie, this is not what you should be doing right now. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, I hung the banners at LXM at 7 a.m. and then I was there at 2 a.m. cutting them down and folding them up. Like, this is the gig.
Yeah,
and this is what we signed up for. And so, I think that what I took from that, and I take it from her all the time, is just like, you can't be too good to do anything, or too quote unquote big to do anything. If it requires cleaning toilets or cutting signage down at 2 a.m., then that's your job, or hanging up the chairs or any of that stuff. And I think when I look back on my LXM days, like, that's what I remember. We did everything. We packed the player bags. We were carrying player bags from the airport. We're hanging up signs. We're putting up the VIP thing. I'm grabbing drinks for our VIPs and then putting on my jersey and going to play. Like, that's what you signed up for. That's a gig.
I love that. That sounds like the entrepreneur grind.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, sometimes that gets lost.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
An applicable story to that.
Yeah.
We were just talking about Deemer Class, Duke legend, and
doing great work.
Great work at First Class Lacrosse, friend of the program. And he had us come down to Chase Fieldhouse in Delaware, and we were helping him with his First Class Lacrosse stuff. And I went up there with one of our awesome physical therapists, Austin Kolish. We're up there, and we're supposed to be running like a piece of his combine.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. We just didn't run. There was a combine, but me and Austin didn't do much about it.
Okay.
And Austin was like, dude, what happened?
Right.
I'm like, I don't know, but something.
Yeah,
something.
sure.
We met a lot of people.
Yeah.
Something will happen. Like, fast forward 6 months later, like, we're opening a clinic in Delaware in Chase Fieldhouse because of the people we met who happened to be unbelievable. So the point is, you got to say yes to good people. but you got to get your hands dirty.
100%.
And that's what you were doing with
100%.
LXM.
100%.
Maybe that's the thing that you learned.
Yeah. Oh no, man! You have to do everything.
Yeah.
You have to be a grinder and do everything. I think to your point, it's a really important one. And I'm still I think I'm still learning this because and it's probably because of my career as a player. Like I'm used to, you do this and this happens right instantly, typically as an athlete. I think as an entrepreneur, you do this, and 2 years from now this might happen. 6 months from now this might happen, and so I'm still learning to deal with that and learning what that process looks like. And that's a challenge for me at times.
I can totally relate. Maybe one of the ways you kind of hedge against that is you have so many different projects going on.
Yeah.
Tell us what you got going on.
Yeah. So I think 5-Star is definitely taking up the majority of my time. It's a really cool sports tech company. We've done a lot of stuff in events, whether that's operating our own events or sponsoring events and activating at events or helping produce events. Like we just recently finished producing the MIAAs, both lacrosse and baseball. There's an interesting rule in baseball. Did you know this? That if the higher seed loses in the championship, there's another game. I'm not kidding. That's a real thing.
Yes, that is a real thing. Not in MIAA.
I think so.
Oh, is it?
I think it just happened.
I didn't do a lot of competing at elite levels in MIAA.
Look, you sure you did? Oh, and here we go.
No, I'm not going
there. Not yet. You're saying that. But yeah, so we produce events.
That's usually like a college baseball thing, but
yeah, it's insane. I didn't know that, but so from the event perspective,
thank you for including baseball.
Of course,
us baseball heads love
to
hear.
I played t-ball. I played t-ball back in the day.
And what do you think about baseball players? Lacrosse guys want to know.
What do you mean? What I think about baseball players in general?
Baseball athlete.
The ones I've met have been cool. I haven't really spent a ton.
Athletically.
It depends on the position, right?
Okay.
Like I think a catcher is wild. I look at that position that they squat in for hours on end, and that's insane when you think about hips and knees. Pitchers. I think people that can hit home runs consistently and make contact. I don't see anybody that can make contact with that ball consistently. It's pretty wild.
Okay, that's all of them.
I think that's insane.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, any baseball player that can consistently hit a ball, I'm impressed with at high level.
Great. Here's one of my passions.
Oh no.
And that is apply all of the reams of data and the sports science and the know-how and the strength and conditioning to get that rotational velocity and apply it to your freaking sport.
Yeah.
It will be game changing.
1,000%. Agreed.
Okay, me and you will team together on that.
I look forward to that.
Thank you. Okay, so 5-Star.
Okay, so we obviously done a sports tech company. We've done a ton with events, operating, owning, producing. We have a couple of properties and products right now, just over market research over the last, 3 years or so. We're really excited about one specifically launching later in the fall that we're super fired up about.
Okay, that's 5-Star.
Yep.
Then you got...
Yeah, my 18 is great. 1812 with my business partner, Sean, from teams to premium events, Session 18, Method 18, Academy. It's the one I'm the most excited about. I said the two because honestly, and when it comes to events and like the vibe of all things 18 related, it's typically built around what I enjoyed when I was this age. Like the atmosphere that I feel like we can create, that kids are empowered, they feel comfortable and confident, they feel pushed and coached hard, but they know that this is not life and death because it's a game. Like and I think friends taught me that. And it's because we were competitive in the C conference, B conference, whatever, but we weren't a sports powerhouse by any means. So like winning and losing was not the end all be all. It was cool to win, but it was like if I lost, I was not at home crying. Or like me and my boys weren't like silent on the car ride home, and not like we moved on. And so I think when it comes to sport, it's really important to create an environment that like you get all the things you need, the lessons you need to learn, but you're like, it's still a sport. We're hanging here for the next couple hours. We're gonna work really hard. I'm probably gonna yell at you at some point because I'm gonna be disappointed in something you did. But you're gonna have fun and you're gonna feel empowered. And when you need a break, take a break. And then when this is over, this shit is over. Like I'm not expecting you to go home and be really upset about something that just happened. So anyway, Session 18 and Method 18. Session 18 is for like elite players, and it's yoga, sports psychology, athletic training. You're obviously on the field doing skill work, all that stuff. And then you have Method 18, which is for that middle school athlete preparing them for high school. So those are my two favorite events we do. But from Team 18 to 18 National to Sonics, we got a lot of fun stuff going.
So that begs the question, how do you prioritize your day and your efforts?
Yeah, so you have to, it all comes down to the team around you, right? So like my time is spent on 5-star. And Sean runs 18. Yeah, and so you have to build your team around you, and you have to, honestly, in my opinion, when it comes to time management, prioritizing, that's all stuff you learned in your sport when you played. Like Hopkins, you took care of the classroom, you took care of the lacrosse field, and everything else was just kind of there. And if you had time to do the social thing, cool. I rarely did. Not that there was a ton to do anyway at Hopkins, but you prioritize, man. That's the gig.
And so nuts and bolts, what are your hacks to doing that?
You have to, in my opinion, you have to be intentional about all of it. Like right now, for me, the most important thing in my life is my family. Making sure that I'm there for them all the time, not just sometimes, and not just when it fits into my quote unquote work schedule. So if I'm in town, I'm taking them to school and picking them up. Like I'm a part of that process. If I'm in town and there's no like meeting I have to attend at 5 p.m., we're at dinner together. Like I'm not missing those moments with my wife and kids. And now that we're back on the East Coast, my parents. So it's like a non-negotiable for me.
It's blocked out.
Yeah, non-negotiable. It's in my schedule. Like it's non-negotiable. Like I am here. I'm not just, I'm actually present. I'm not just here sitting here. Like I am present. I am paying attention. I know what's going on. Because if you don't have that, I can't say if you don't. If I don't have that base, everything else is off in my life. If I don't feel like I've spent ample amount of time with my wife and children, and that I know what's going on in my household, and I know what's happening at school with the kids and camp and everything going on with Mare, then everything else is off. So intentional, be intentional about the things that you care about, and the things that you need to be successful in other areas. And I think for me, it starts with them. And then once the house is straight, everything else just kind of falls into the right place. And then when it comes to your different businesses, like, we've talked a lot about the things I'm involved in, but that's all pretty peripheral. Like the sunglass company, Tomahawk Shades, absolutely love those guys. Been incredible partners. I'm a part owner in that company. But in terms of day to day, week to week, month to month, like I'm pretty limited, right? Like I'll check in with Andrew. We'll have an ownership call, once a quarter. So like that's not something I'm actively doing on a day-to-day basis. And so you have to be smart about how you manage your time. And again, the whatever your home base is, everybody's different. Mine is my actual home and the people in it. And I take care of that.
Yeah, it sounds like the lesson there is you got to be militant and real and list in your, whether it be in your head or a little bit more specifically, what is it that's important to you, and carve those out.
Yeah, you know what I would compare it to, and you hear athletes say this all the time. I was one of them. I'm sure you say it to your clients. Like you can't negotiate with yourself, right? Like you set what you're doing, and that's what you're doing. Period. And like back in the day, for me, that was training. Like I'm training, eating right, performing on the field. I'm not negotiating with myself on a day. Like I'm not gonna wake up and be like, yo, my back is killing me. I'm out. It's not happening. Like this is what you're doing every day. So I took that not negotiating with myself, and now that's in my life, my actual life. I'm not negotiating with myself with this family thing. I'm not missing things with these 6 people. Not happening. And then once I start there, then I work backwards. All right. Now what else is non-negotiable? I gotta train 4 times a week. It has to happen. I have to do some sort of movement 4 times a week. It used to be whatever it was, 6 days a week. Now it's 4. And it's certainly not Jay Dyer dragging me around.
No, it's True Sport.
True Sports is nice, a nice option. F45, all that good stuff. But I think that's what it is. So I take what I used to do in sport and now just apply it to my actual life.
Yeah, but great lessons.
Yeah,
great
for sure.
lessons. Oh, yeah. And that's the way you're able to keep all these pans in the fire.
Yeah.
Where do you learn how to be so present?
That's a good question. I think, first off, I haven't always had it. I've had to work on it. My wife's been great about pushing me on it when she notices I'm not, which is incredible. I think it comes back to relationships, man. If you can't be present and create not be present and create a real relationship, which is not possible. Right? Like I have to be there, listening to you, paying attention to you, whether that's my little guy Smith or daughter Brooke or my wife or my parents. Like all those, or whether it's them or it's some cat that I was at Jimmy John's yesterday, and he's like, "Are you Kyle?" I'm like, "Yeah."
From Friends, high school.
Yeah, from Friends, C conference, runner up. I know we're going there.
We're not going anywhere.
But like meeting that kid, getting his name, like that's a real interaction. It's all that stuff, man. But again, I certainly learned. I don't have it naturally.
I think that's what helps you be so relatable, is that you realize that it's a skill.
Oh yeah.
And you're diving into
Evolving.
that skill. Oh,
Evolving
it's awesome.
skill.
It's awesome. Okay, tell me when you met Kobe Bryant.
Oh man. I met Kobe.
There's just so many
No,
times.
this is funny. The first time, look, man, the first time I met him, this is funny. It was at I was still with Nike at the time, and my contact at Nike was like, "Look, your boy's in Orange County today." And I was like, "What?" I was like,
I can't believe it's here.
I was like, "Where's Yoni? Where is he eating? What's he doing?"
Yeah.
He was like, "Look, this was the World Cup." He's like, "We're shooting Kobe's World Cup commercial," and I was like, "Okay, where?" Like, and not only where, but like, what can I go to? Like, what's my? What, I know you're telling me this information. He's like, "Look, you want to be an extra?" And I was like, "Done." Where? Like, how do I get there? Where is it? So it's at this high school. I go up there, and I get my Lakers uniform. I get my Lakers pants and shooter shirt. And
did they tell you to bring that? They give that to you? Or you're just
no,
like,
I get there and I get my. They give
okay.
I mean, they knew that I was a Nike athlete on the lacrosse
I
side.
picture you like getting dressed.
I'm getting dressed in my Kmart version of it. No, like I get there. They knew I was a Nike athlete for lacrosse. They give me the Kobe shoes, the whole get up, and I got to be an extra on the Lakers bench in that commercial. And high five him after he trains a couple. And we shot it like 17, 20 times. Of like he basically gets it. He shakes off the double, like rolls, and then shoots a fadeaway with like 2 7-footers jumping at him, and then does like the Ronaldo step over the ball. It's a World Cup commercial. Anyway, so that was my first time meeting him. And then through my partnership with Legends, we do a lot of events at Sports Academy, which was Mamba Academy.
Yeah.
And so, he would have his basketball events going on at the same time I had my lacrosse events going on. And so we developed a relationship. And, I would see him a few times a year at that event, which was, just even having the opportunity to, even if it was, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, speaking to him was something I'll remember the rest of my life. It was incredible. One of my all-time favorite athletes. And,
what was it like?
Man, he has a lot of stuff you're talking about. He looks you in your eye. He remembers you. Like I was always blown away. And again, just to be clear, this wasn't like 50 times I got to talk to Kobe. This was 4, over the course of a couple of years. But it was always, oh, good to see you, Kyle. Like it was always a very clear communication from his perspective. Like no, I know who you are. Like we've talked multiple times. I know who you are, and I know what you did in your sport. And I'll always remember that. That's how he was with everybody in that gym. Everybody in that gym, even my lacrosse player, they couldn't care less that I was there. Everybody in that gym, all 10,000 people were there for him. And I'd imagine that's how it was everywhere he ever went. And to still have the humility and the wherewithal to like be present and create real interactions with people, because he knows that changed that person's life probably, right?
Yeah.
That interaction with Kobe. Just like for me, like I said, the fact that he even remembered it was once or twice a year for a couple of years seeing me and us having an interaction, man, it's all-time. One of my all-time favorite moments.
Yeah, powerful. One-on-one, Kobe at his height plays Michael Jordan at his height.
Okay. Yeah.
You're a betting man.
I am. Well, no.
Who you putting money on?
I wish they could have seen you shrug your shoulders.
Who you put money on?
So look, that's a tough argument. How many times are they playing?
One game. Game to 11. Winner.
Who's got the ball first?
Great question. Michael Jordan.
And they're both in their prime.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think that's a stalemate. I think it's I think it's a bunch of fouling and
a lot of fouling, a lot of name calling.
This thing never gets to 11. No shot. Never gets to 11.
It's not a bad answer.
If they're too competitive, that doesn't get to 11. somebody's gonna get fouled in a way that like they can't go anymore. Like no shot. That ends in a 5-6. MJ's up, but Kobe just came across his forearms and he can't.
Someone's hurt.
Yeah, he can't go anymore.
Okay, not a bad answer.
But but to be clear, MJ's my guy. From the time I can remember loving sport, MJ is my favorite athlete of all time, and Kobe is 1A. Like as I grew, because keep in mind my age, as I grew, like Kobe became like my 20s, like my 20s through now.
Where would you? This is hard. It's gonna be hard for you to answer.
Please.
Where does Patrick Ewing fall?
Who? In the MJ Kobe
argument? I feel like he's there. No.
So on my end for this specific conversation, he's not in those for the MJ Kobe conversation. Yeah. But I mean, but he's an all timer, right? There's no argument in that, all timer for sure. But when we're talking MJ Kobe, I don't know if Mr. Ewing is right there.
Fair.
All timer.
I appreciate you calling Mr. Ewing. Okay. If you're playing the role of Michael Jordan, who's playing the role of Kobe in this one-on-one?
In basketball?
No. Good question. Lacrosse. Thank you. That's where I was going. Lacrosse.
Yeah.
If you're Michael Jordan, who's Kobe?
Oh, I don't know.
You only get one.
That's a tough.
Thank you. Thank you. Who is it? Is he a Hopkins teammate of yours?
Oh, are you okay? So I get.
You're one.
No, Paul. I get what you're saying. No,
Paul.
No,
I'm
Paul.
going Jesse Schwartzman. But okay. Okay, Paul.
No, look. Look. Here's what I'll say. And Paul has been. I mean, he and I have talked about this. Paul's been incredible at building a brand.
You talked about this, Kobe, Michael.
No. I was saying what he's done.
Yeah.
And like, if you look at let's go back. When it comes to like guys building a brand, right, coming out of lacrosse, I alluded to this earlier. Like Mike Powell came out, and Mike Powell was the first guy. Now Gary Gate ended up having a line with STX like a year or two after my original line release. So like not at the prime of his career, more towards the end of his career as a player. So if you look at like the last 20 years, Mike Powell came out, got an equipment line with Brian, like I told you, signed car deals and was like the guy. I came out the next year, and then I signed some deals and equipment lines and built a brand. And then I can't remember who was first between Max or Paul. It was either Max Siebold or Paul. They were like, I think it might have been Paul then Max.
By the way, Max Siebold.
Oh,
Team Israel legend.
No, he's a monster.
Okay.
He's a monster.
Yeah.
Max was a monster, all timer. Probably still could play, honestly.
That's scary.
He's one of those guys that like could probably give him a month to train and he could still be dominant. But then it was Paul, signed the deal, obviously launched everything. Then Max, then Rob Pinnell.
Right.
And you just go like you go. So what Paul has done in lacrosse, it just hasn't been done outside of obviously building a league with his brother, is, Paul was the first lacrosse player willing to put himself out there on social and understand how to use social.
Yeah.
Like he's making YouTube videos early.
Master.
Oh, it's incredible. And I will give credit to Paul because he takes it on the chin for decisions made, putting himself out there. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's got the back to carry it, right? Yeah. Like he can deal with it, and he's been incredible. So all the credit to him. All the credit to him for everything he's built. And I mean, I know it doesn't get talked about enough. How good he was.
Yeah,
like look, man, like great, all time great. Like when you look at players for the last 50 years, like find me one that you can say definitively. Obviously, everybody has opinions, but find one that you can say definitively was so much better at something than him.
Yeah, it's tough. You're right.
He's very, 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 very good, and that doesn't get talked about enough.
Dude, I could see you at ESPN. You would be good.
That's nice of you. That's nice of you.
Man, I would listen to you. I would read about it. You would help me understand lacrosse.
All these years later, you still don't get it, huh?
I get it.
Oh, you sure? Doesn't feel like it.
Really?
No, I was just kind of saying it.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. I get it. I love it. You know what I'm fascinated by? I'm fascinated by I'll get a little bit geeky, but I'm fascinated by the gross motor needed. Big dudes, speed, covering ground, athletes, and the fine motor, the touch, the ability to throw a long stick up in the air, know where that head is. I mean, just the the fine tuning of that fascinates me as a geek. And
Yeah.
then, dude, I've watched it enough.
Yeah, and then you got to understand.
By the way, I forgot about this memory.
Mm.
I knew nothing about lacrosse in high school or college.
we
And I went to Maryland.
never played you guys in
I don't think we had a
lacrosse.
team.
Oh,
I
okay,
think
in
we
high
had a
school.
team,
Got it.
yeah.
Got it.
Now they do.
Got it.
But I remember Hopkins plays Maryland,
Mhm.
and I'm a schmuck at Maryland.
Yeah,
Yeah,
call
no,
yourself that. You're a good. You
Schmuck's
know. Yeah.
not so bad. Schmuck's not
Oh,
so
that's
bad.
not a bad
No,
name?
I mean, it's not good. But I mean, like a clown. I'm a clown at
Got
Maryland.
it. Got it.
And I'm like, I know a guy on the Hopkins team.
Yeah.
I knew other guy on the Hopkins team. I just remember going to, it was Bird Stadium at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was watching, but
Yeah.
I went to watch Kyle Harrison and
Yeah.
Hopkins play Maryland,
Yeah.
which was like 01, I guess, or 02.
Oh, two.
Oh,
Freshman year.
Of course you remember that. Did you play well?
I did.
Hell yeah. But I remember being mesmerized by
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's real. It's an impressive sport, and that's why it's so rapidly growing.
Yeah.
I just cannot wait for that sports science side to come along, and it's coming along
Yeah.
with lacrosse.
Yeah.
Because of a lot of powerhouses. One is the Jay Dyers of the world.
Yeah.
We're just pushing to get it there, and guys like you,
Yeah.
and guys who are training religiously. Anyway, I don't remember how I got onto that tangent, but I know a little bit about lacrosse. I definitely know how to rehab it. And it's a fascinating sport. Okay,
Yeah.
ready? Lightning round.
I'm prepared. I think. I mean, we'll see.
Okay. What's the last book you read that was powerful?
The Little Blue Truck.
Ooh, by
I can remember it's by my
Billy
my
Madison?
son. No, it's my son's book.
Little Blue
You
Truck.
should read it.
Okay, on it.
It's all about a bunch of little friends helping push this little blue truck out of the mud and how you need everybody to help you push it.
Good freaking answer. I didn't even give you these questions prior. Okay, number 2. Best lacrosse player you've ever played against. Don't say Paul Rabel.
Ever played against? So wait, I know it's lightning round, but you got to be more specific. Like guarded me, or like the best player on the other team?
Guarded you.
Brody Merrill.
Good answer. Good dude too.
Oh, I'm all time.
How's that for knowing Lax? Yeah. Okay. Best sports movie of all time?
Best? I gotta go with Remember the Titans.
Wrong. Field of Dreams, but fine.
Never seen it.
Okay. Dude, I've seen every lacrosse
I
movie.
haven't seen it all the way through, man. Like it's been on TBS sometimes, and I've been like, all right, let me catch 20 minutes of this joint, but I've never seen it all the way through. But because of the face you just made, you have my word. I'll watch it before the summer's over.
Appreciate that. And
Some
I
flight.
actually believe you.
Oh, I wouldn't lie to you.
Last time you were starstruck?
Oh, I actually do know where it was. It was the uninterrupted ESPYs party last year, Serena Williams.
Yeah.
And like people were going up, because I'm a massive fan. People were going up and saying like, big fan of all you've done, whatever. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Just like kind of stood in the
Just
stood in the
nervous.
background. Just I mean, she's got to be all time top 3 athletes of all time. If you want to get into like the real argument.
I love the way you put that because you didn't say female athletes.
What?
I
Hell
love
no.
that.
Athletes of all time. Like you'd be hard pressed.
Top
Give me better.
I think it's hard.
I'll
we
listen.
would, yeah. We would start with John Starks probably. So he's one.
So you're trying to end the conversation. You've had enough and you're ready to go. Got it. You've had enough and you're trying to find your way out. Got it.
That is my wrap up. Okay, next. What do you wish sports physical therapists knew about rehabbing elite level athletes?
Honestly, it's a good question. I can only speak for the ones I've worked with, and you and your team are great at this. Like, I think you guys probably already have this, and so I could be preaching to the choir, but like, you have a unique understanding that like we want to get back ASAP tomorrow if possible, today if you could.
Yeah.
And like being candid about what the timeline is. I think at times in my career, early in my career, late, I was with Mike, Ginta from Evolution PT out west because I was in LA.
He's been on the pod.
Yeah, and then late, I was with you and your team, like, and you guys were so spot on with the timeline and keeping it a buck from the beginning. so that like mentally I can be working towards that. Now, if it shifts throughout the process, you're going to let us know. But giving a realistic timeline from go, I think is so important because as an athlete, that's literally all I care about. I know how awful this is going to be. You sticking needles in my adductor and everything. I know how awful the next couple months is going to be.
Yeah.
But I know that June 11th, I'm back on the field, and I can give a perfect example of my only surgery I had in my entire career was on my left ankle. I had all the cartilage and ligaments were torn. They had been torn for like 3 or 4 years, and it got to a point where it was just like bone on bone. I couldn't go anymore. So I got surgery. This was so dumb of me. Had I checked it out like months prior, I would have been back for the full season. But I got surgery in May, and like I knew that was our best chance. It's the championship I won in 2017. I knew that was our best chance to win a championship. Like we had just lost in championship prior year. I was so effing mad at myself for not getting. And my wife had told me to get checked out right after the season. I didn't. And so surgery May. And so, our training camp had started a week later, and then our season starts. And so the doc was like, you will be playing by July 4th. And so in my head, like, that's all I cared about. That's all I cared about.
Yeah.
I don't care about what's happening between now and then. Like, the pain was awful. The scrubbing was awful. But come that game, I was on the field. I scored the first goal of the game from a confidence perspective. Obviously, that changed everything. And then the last goal of the game, I shook and then planted on that ankle and changed direction and scored. And, like, all was right in the world. And I had forgotten about it. And we went on and we won a championship at the end of that season. But, like, that timeline that I was given at the beginning is what, like, set me mentally on the right path. So, long-winded answer, but I'd say give real feedback. Even if it sucks. If it's like, hey, this is an 8-month deal, like, that sucks to hear, but at least I know. Like, I would say tell them that from the beginning.
I love that.
Just want to know.
That's really great advice. I mean, your attention to detail, your memory, your ability to relate and connect and be present. There's so much to glean and learn from that. So I appreciate you bringing that on the True Sports Physiotherapy pod. Thanks for all you've taught me over the years.
Oh, stop. I appreciate that. Wait, you're really about to end this?
What do you mean? What didn't we cover?
I don't know. You tell me.
What did we not get to?
You tell me.
Here's what I love here. So for those of you who don't know, Kyle Harrison and I go way back.
Way back.
To the Hardwood.
Mm-hmm.
In 2000.
Mm-hmm.
We played against one another.
You knew the year that quickly, huh?
So here's what I really love about you, Kyle, because this is what I love is all these accolades.
Sure.
Lest I read through them again. You still walked into my office.
Yeah.
Thankfully, had no idea who I was when you walked in.
Sure.
But you're wearing the friend shirt.
Yeah.
And so I think I said something like, dude, we got to talk about friends.
Yeah.
And so I brought up the fact that my Beth DeFilla Warriors, my high school.
Sure.
I mean, people around the country have heard of Beth DeFilla Warriors.
People around the world. What do you mean?
Around the world. I love that. They defeated Kyle's Friends Quakers.
Did. Absolutely.
Now, from that point, February 2000, when I met you, let's say in 2018 or 17 or something like that, you had done a few things in your life athletically.
Sure.
One would think that you had forgotten about that loss.
No, of course not. I remember all of it.
Not only do you remember all of it, you remember like the
details.
nauseating details.
All of it. Yeah.
Now, we ended up winning by 1 point.
You did.
Anything else you want to share about that night?
But that night, I thought you had a great night.
Thank you.
I thought you played well.
Yes.
I was disappointed in the loss.
Yes.
On our end.
Let's get into the stat line that I put up. I'm sure you remember that.
I don't remember.
Just
I don't remember.
But we ended up winning by 1 point.
Yeah.
And you remembered every single freaking detail, including one dude who missed a foul shot, one dude who made a foul shot, one dude who made a buzzer-beating three-pointer, which only brought you to within 1 point.
Yeah.
To lose that game, and you were still pissed about it.
Yeah. I think when I look back on that run, like we won the championship my freshman year. And
basketball.
Basketball. Shout out to that team. We CJ Nixon, Coach Ez Ryan, the whole crew. Greg Kelly. We just went into the Hall of Fame and Friends for that team 3 weeks ago, and then we won my senior year. And those two in between, those still are like embedded in my head because I feel like we left something there.
You did.
And we missed a foul shot at the one before the year before. Airballed a foul shot.
That was against us.
That was against you guys. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Airballed a foul shot. Like we left something on the court. That's all.
That's all.
It was fun.
We'll leave it there.
You have nothing else to say.
I just appreciate you letting us win that.
Oh,
game.
stop! That
So
did
that
not
I
happen.
have some, that definitely did not happen.
No.
Here's how I know that didn't happen, because every picture from that night,
Yeah.
I feel like it was like taken on Polaroids. Every single picture has you just like lurking in the
Always.
background, like trying to block the hell out of us,
Always.
and us just pump faking the
Always.
hell out of
Yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah.
going up, getting the foul,
Yeah,
and
sure,
one,
sure.
which just made it really easy to coast to victory.
Yeah, no, look, you guys got your rings. Did you get rings from that? You guys still talk to all those guys.
I love those guys, and we talk a lot about Kyle Harrison.
Do you talk around 2 months ago, like February every year?
February 26th, every single year. What? That's not a thing?
No, it's a thing for
It's
sure.
a thing.
It's a 100% thing. Every year.
Let's just say your name comes up in those chats.
Does it?
Let me tell you a little tidbit.
You
Here's a
have to
little
invite
tidbit.
me into it one year.
I would love that.
Please.
I just sent you the screenshot. Here's a little tidbit. One of my buddies,
Mhm.
Joe Rombro, still my best friend, he wrote on his hand, "Stop number 20" before that championship. Who wore number 20?
That was me. That was me wearing 20. Well, yeah. Well, look.
Well, he stopped you, Kyle.
He did. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I feel like the stat line was tight. I feel like the stat line was still
I
tight.
think you know exactly what that's.
I do, but we don't need to talk about it. You have to invite me to chat.
Oh
February
my God.
26th, 2024. I look forward to that.
Yeah, come on in.
Please.
Okay, we would love it. Thanks for being so humble.
Of course.
Thanks for giving Beth DeFilo that ring. Appreciate
So
that.
you did get
too.
rings. You got rings.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, rings. We got it all.
You got it all.
Yeah, like duffels of cash.
Yeah,
from
yeah.
from the boosters.
Yeah, of course.
Beth DeFilo
Oh,
boosters. You know what that's
I
like.
can't do
The
it.
Beth DeFilo
The
boosters.
C conference booster.
The C conference boosters. Kyle, you've been a goddamn pleasure.
I appreciate
Nothing
you,
but
man.
success
Appreciate
in the
it,
future.
brother.
Can't wait to have you on again. Thanks for listening.
You know it. Thanks for having me.